close your eyes and pull like a dog.
And a new Irish record for Phil Healy, 22.99.
Christy Cooney hands over the Sam Maguire Cup to Graham Canty, Cork All-Ireland champions for the 7th time ever.
Hello and welcome to the Star Sport Podcast. My name is Kieran McCarthy, sports editor of the Southern Star, and I'm joined on today's show by John O'Connor, presenter of Sporting Cork on Cork City Radio. On today's podcast, we're revisiting the 1983 Munster Football Final between Cork and Kerry as part of our Classic Game series. First off, John, I have to say straight away, I have no memories of this game because I was one at the time. I was born in 82, and as you can appreciate, down in Kerry, the 1983 Munster Final it's been put in a box and it's been tucked away, not to be ever opened again because it came so soon after Derby's goal for Offaly in 1982. But in Cork, obviously, there's a lot better memories of the 83 Munster Final.
Oh yeah, like I was 13, so I'm a small bit older than you at the time. But it was my first time seeing Cork beat Kerry in the championship, and I was 13. Like, as 74 was the last time they'd won before it, and I was too young to remember it then. But Kerry were going for 9 in a row as well, and that would have been a record. And to stop that was incredible. It was an amazing day.
I suppose if we are being quite honest, like you said there, Kerry were going for the 9 in a row. They were obviously the greatest football team of that era. And going into this Munster final, nobody gave Cork any chance whatsoever. Even going back to the Munster semi-final against Clare, I think Cork were lucky to win that, 1-11 to 1-5. And it was a line I saw from Jim O'Sullivan in the Cork Examiner at the time. He was reporting on that game, and he said, so bad were Cork that it would be difficult to recall a comparable display in a semi-final over the last decade. So when you combine everything, like, nobody gave Cork a chance in the 83 final.
Not a hope, and the conditions as well. That's my big memory of the game. There was a cloudburst a few hours beforehand, and the ground was, Páirc Uí Chaoimh, as you know, at the time couldn't take water really too much. But there was a lot of people stayed away from the game as well. One, because they didn't think Cork would win it, and two, because the weather was any fellas who at the last minute might decide to go didn't bother going because the weather was so bad. But there was about 17,000 at it. It was a very small crowd. But going into it, Kerry would be an overwhelming favourites. Like, they'd have to be.
Because when you look at that Kerry team, it was stacked with all the big names: Jack O'Shea, Spillane, Paddy O'Shea, Mikey Sheehy, Ger Keefe, Egan. Like, it was that team of superstars at the time. And compared to, I suppose, to the Cork team, and there were fellas who'd suffered some bad beatings against Kerry over the years. So, like we were saying there, everything was in Kerry's favour. But like we know, it didn't turn out like that. It turned out to be one of the great Cork displays to stop that Kerry team.
Yeah, like at half time, it was a low enough scoring game to begin with because I think it was only 1-3 apiece at half time. But Cork had, my memory of it, I think Cork had the better of the first half. But then the second half, it really took off, like, because it was a very high scoring game, 3-10 to 3-9. But that Cork team had some fantastic players in it as well. You had Dave Barry, Cleary's first game, Dinny Allen, Jimmy Kerrigan, Christy Ryan. I think Christy Ryan broke his finger that day as well and played on. And I remember thinking, God, what a man. Imagine breaking your finger and playing on. I'd never broken a finger at that stage, but I realised after you can. But because he was a hero of mine then. But that was a good Cork team looking back on it. Kerrigan as well, Kerrigan Senior. He was a fine footballer as well. But I mean, looking at it, going player for player, you'd think Cork wouldn't have had a hope. But they played really well on the day as well. Given the conditions, both teams played very well.
And I was just obviously reading up on the game for the piece that's in this week's Southern Star. That's on sale now. I'll just remind listeners to that. It was John Cleary I was chatting to, and that was his first season as a Cork senior, and it was his first Munster final, and he scored a goal, I think, after 15 or 16 minutes. And he was one of those young fellas kind of that was new on the scene after the Cork team that won the minor All-Ireland back in, I think it was 81. So there was, like you said there was talent in that Cork team, but they were probably just unlucky that Kerry were so good at the time.
Yeah, I mean, that's been Cork's problem for generations. That, of course, we mustn't forget too that a neighbour of mine was the manager at the time, Eamon Ryan, and he's living down Ballingeary now, your direction now. But we went on to other things too as well with the Cork footballers and with the Pierce Sick as well, managing them to win the counties in hurling. But that would Kerry were the stumbling block. Like if you look back even to '76 when they beat them in the replay in the park as well, that Cork kept coming up with great Kerry teams. But I don't know, was it a psychological thing for Kerry as well, getting caught in the last minute after the year before as well?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was. But then we go to Ireland. Tell you they went on and won 3 All Irelands after because of losing those 2 games. Was it worst thing to do for Cork?
Because, like you said there, like Kerry came back and they won the next 3 Munsters as well. So, like that Cork '83 team, they actually stopped at 12 in a row. Like it could have been a 12 in a row if not for that performance and that win. And it all comes down to that famous Tiggy Murphy goal so late in the game. Like that's the stuff of legend at this stage. What's your own recollection of that goal?
When he hit it, I thought he'd missed. When he hit the post, I thought it was going to come back out. But it was the quick free kick. Because if you look at Deanie Allen, I was looking at it again this morning. Deanie was thinking of taking the free, and he was hobbling around the place. Like it was just as well he didn't take it. But the quick run up, like I can kind of remember it in slow motion as the ball flighted over in past the Kerry full back line. And things like that didn't happen Cork. They didn't score last minute goals against Kerry to win matches. You know, if anything, it was Kerry would do it to you. And just the excitement. I think for about a millisecond after it, no one said anything because we didn't quite believe it had happened. And then just the roar from the smallish crowd was incredible. And it was just, I mean, I got on the pitch after it as well, obviously, because I remember running up, I was tapping Kerrigan on the back as well, but it was just the euphoria. It was one of the greatest occasions, I suppose, when you're 13 and to see it happen was just, and the way it happened as well, because the match could have gone anywhere and it would have been another hard luck story for Cork as well to be so close to Kerry and not win it would have been devastating. Like
you said there, John, you were 13 at the time and you were at that game, and it's memories like that, they stick with a kid forever and ever until the day you die. Kind of, you will remember being there because it was such a special moment, and especially, like I said, for the young kids there at the time, like it's wins like that inspire the next generation.
Yeah, I was very lucky. I was at the Munster Final the next year when Cork did the same thing to Tipperary in the hurling. So they are my 2 moments of that. Cork can always come back, which that might have served me well over the years, thinking that there's always a chance. But they do inspire you, and it's I'll always have that day because that was just incredible. I mean, the next big day we had was '87, and it was Kerry nearly did it to Cork in the drawing game. They got the goal in the last minute, but Cork were lucky to get the point after it. But it was just the buzz around afterwards of people because it was recognised how great a Kerry team that was,
I'm sorry, John. I was going to say, I suppose what happened after that. Then obviously Cork, that was knockout football at the time. There was no back door, so Cork went on to the All Ireland semi-finals as Munster champions and drew the game up against Dublin and brought it back to Páirc Uí Chaoimh for the semi-final. That famous All Ireland semi-final at Páirc Uí Chaoimh. When John Cleary when I was chatting to him, he made the point that in that semi-final replay in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, he said Cork were kind of favourites for the first time all year, that they weren't the underdog, and it didn't deal with that too well. Do you think that was an opportunity missed in '83, that Cork team were good enough to kick on and win the All Ireland?
Oh, it was. I think it was I still haven't forgiven Barney Rock because I can still see the goal that he scored in the drawing game to level it up. That was the time Cork could have won it. When Dublin were the second chance, there was no way Dublin were going to lose that. Looking back and in hindsight, I think Cork made too much of a big deal of taking them out of Croke Park, and it was such a novelty factor in bringing them down to Páirc Uí Chaoimh, and it kind of felt the Cork crowd thought the game was won by getting them out of Croke Park, that was going to do it. But that was an incredible good Dublin team too. It was people think of the '83 for All Ireland final with the Galway and all the sendings off, but Brian Mullins was imperious that day in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. God, he ruled the skies. There was just they were in the replay. They were miles better than Cork. You couldn't argue with it. They were well over them. There's the drawing game. We should have taken them. Unfortunately, we did take our chance, but I suppose inexperience as well for Cork.
When when you look at that Cork 83 team, can you draw any similarities between that team and almost the kind of present Cork football team in terms of, like, Kerry have dominated Munster the last couple of years? I don't know what they've won, is it 6 or 7 in a row? And like Cork are the team that probably could stop them, if like of any team in Munster. It will be Cork. Can you draw similarities that this current Cork team could pull a big performance out to beat Kerry? Like, it could have, if that Munster semi-final went ahead in Páirc Uí Chaoimh in May, could have been a possibility. But can you see any similarities between the two?
Yeah, I think Cork are a year or two away from it yet, and the Kerry team at the moment aren't as good as that Kerry team. Obviously, you know, the Kerry team the present Kerry team can be got at. I think their full back line is still a bit. If you run at Kerry like Cork showed the last couple of years, you can get goals there. But I think Cork's development, like this year, Kerry were playing the big boys all year long in the league in Division 1, and Cork were in Division 3, and as well as they were playing well, but it was still Division 3. They did everything they possibly could, but they need to be up in Division 1 before they can be seriously challenging Kerry. And that'll be 2 years' time, hopefully everything going to plan. And then they'll be stopping the Kerry 9 in a row again. That'll be the dream.
Because you actually make a great point there in terms of, I suppose, the level of the league. Go back to the 83 Cork team. They played in Division 1 in that 82-83 league, and that was a time when the league started before Christmas and kind of continued after. And I think Cork beat Offaly in who are All-Ireland champions at the time back in that league, and I think they finished 3rd or 4th in the table. So, like, you're right, that Cork team in 83 was at a higher level in terms of yeah.
And they won the league. I think Cork won the league in 81. If I'm correct, or they were in the final anyway. Certainly, they were in 2 finals in 81, the hurling and the football, I think, because Jimmy Barry Murphy was involved in both of them. But they were playing a higher standard. Like, Cork were in free fall for the last few years. They're on their way back, whereas that Cork team were thereabouts, you know, for a few years. So, like, I'd be very hopeful for Cork football. I think they're going the right directions with the minors and the under 20s winning last year, and also like the way they played in Division 3, like they did everything they needed to. And I think if they're up, like, it's stages now at this stage, Cork public love to have an instant response. It's not going to happen, I'm afraid. And especially now with everything being thrown to doubt. I mean, on the plus side, when it does go back, Rory Dean will be playing, which is always a bonus. Like, but hopefully nobody get injured in the meantime. But it's hard to look past Kerry this year. Kerry can take a life of its own, of course, in a Munster semi-final. But it doesn't look like it'll be quite the do or die now this year, because I don't think there'll be the second tier probably won't go ahead at this stage, because that would have put a lot of pressure on Cork if they hadn't won the league. But no, I think we're about 2 years away from seriously challenging Kerry, unfortunately. So
John O'Connor's prediction is that Cork will stop the Kerry 9 in a row in 2 years' time. History's going to repeat itself, just like Tadhg Murphy's goal followed Darby's goal and stunned Kerry. You're predicting that lightning will strike twice.
Yes, you heard it here first.
Oh, brilliant. Oh, John, come here. Thank you so much for joining us on today's Star Sport podcast. For more on our classic game series, be sure to pick up a copy of this week's Southern Star, which is available in shops across West Cork and online right now. Thanks for listening to the podcast. We'll be back with another episode on Tuesday. So if you enjoy these shows, please make sure to rate, review and subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, Acast, Stitcher, wherever else you listen to the show.
Thanks for listening to the Star Sport Podcast, the only podcast dedicated to all things sport in West Cork. Don't forget to pick up this Thursday's Southern Star newspaper, including our award-winning sports section with everything a West Cork sports fan could want. In shops across West Cork and online from anywhere in the world via www.thesouthernstar.ie/e-paper. The Southern Star and the Star Sport Podcast, #1 for sport in West Cork.